Clipse is back. I'll tell you what, it feels really good to say that. Those of you who don't know, I'm from the DMV, aka DC, Maryland, Virginia. No, not where you get your driver's license. Now, for a lot of people, that normally incorporates Northern Virginia, but a lot of us like to extend it out to Virginia Beach, mainly because of the Neptunes and Clipse, because who wouldn't want to claim them? I've spent a lot of time in Vaw Beach. I spent a lot of time in Newport News as well. Played one of my early shows there. You know, I got a lot of love for Clipse, for Pusha T, no Malice, Pharrell, everyone. So much talent has come out of there. So much contributed to hip hop. And man, it just feels really, really good that they are back. So good, in fact, that you guys saw that even though I was away with moms, her recovery is going well. Thank you for all those messages as she continues to fight and battle cancer. But the one thing that could take me away for a moment from all that quality time was to do a reaction to a brand new Clipse track. I can't wait for the album. You know that we're going to do a full album breakdown when that comes through. But I got to make another video in the meantime, because as I catch up on the news stories, as I get tapped back in with social media, there is a really interesting headline that I am seeing in story revolving around Clipse, Kendrick Lamar, and Drake. So I read this full interview that they did with GQ, but let's tap into it right now because I think there's a lot of good quotes and snippets from it. But first and foremost, let's address this Drake and Kendrick Lamar story. Still, it wouldn't be a Clipse album without some label woes nearly derailing the fun even after the product was cooked to purity. I love how GQ is just leaning into Clipse and obviously all of their drug bars that they give you. The duo's lore is of course marked by the label politics that delayed a quick follow-up to their debut album, Lord Willin', forcing them to dominate the mixtape circuit with their seminal We Got It For Cheap series while crafting, in my opinion, still one of the greatest hip-hop albums of this day, Hell Hath No Fury, with a chip on their shoulder. And that definitely came through in that album. What happened when Let God Sort 'Em Out is less dramatic, but it's a situation with massive reverberations nonetheless. If you expected the album last summer, the brothers sympathized. So did they. We all did. Pusha says they felt confident, proud, and assured of themselves when they presented the music to Def Jam. Now, what's really important here is that Def Jam is under the umbrella of UMG. Stay with me here. This ties back in. The label loved what they heard, except for Kendrick Lamar's guest verse on the thunderous Chains and Whips, the final version of the song that Pharrell teased at his first LV show, and the song Pusha says was the first to come out of the session. So this has been in the bank for a minute now, compounding interest. Don't be fooled by Pusha's interviews appealing for one last guest verse and the Twitter jokes that he went to a GNX tour date to physically walk Kendrick into the nearest studio. K-Dot's first homework has been turned in for a while now. This has been locked and loaded. But after a summer of beef between their two biggest artists that resulted in a still ongoing lawsuit from Drake, Def Jam's parent company, UMG, blanched at the antagonistic optics. I love how they flip optics in that sense of two of Drake's biggest enemies linking on wax. And yeah, I mean, to this day, who are the two prominent people in ops of Drake who both handed him L's and rolled that up? I mean, Pusha T, it only took the story of Adidon to do that, really. And that huge reveal. And we talked about the story of Adidon and just kind of what that meant. I mean, it literally made Drake become a actual responsible father and, you know, claim his child. So that was one of the biggest reveals in forensic analysis in a diss track ever. And I mean, it just had reverberations. That impacted the whole story of Adidon, the whole Adidas deal, everything beyond that. I mean, that was just crazy. But obviously, one thing that he and Kendrick have in common is that common foe and that common enemy. But they've always had an appreciation for each other. They have worked with each other in the past. I think we should do a breakdown of Clipse and Kendrick. Stay tuned for that. Pusha and Kendrick, I mean. Obviously, I refer to Clipse because it's so good to have no Malice back. But yeah, I'm sidetracking. That's definitely something that we'll get to. But there is a history of respect between Kendrick, between Pusha T, and obviously tying in with Clipse now. And obviously there's that respect because they have a song together. But let's keep this going with this story. Pusha calls their apprehension stupid, primarily because none of the bars in Kendrick's otherwise excellent verse could really be perceived as a shot or even subliminal. Now, when I was reading this article, I was getting just the way that the writer was laying it out. Like, the writer has heard the album, right? Because the writer was talking about some of the production on the album, some of the other lyrics to the album when he wrote his story. So I feel like the writer of this has also heard this track in full and knows exactly what's going on and what Kendrick says, which is really interesting because they're trying not to give too much away, but I think there's enough said here at the same time. It does, however, contain the stellar line, "Therapy taught me how to open up. It also showed me I don't give a fuck. Pusha can barely contain his disgust recounting how the stalemate with Def Jam played out. They wanted me to ask Kendrick to censor his verse, which of course I was never doing, he explains. And then they wanted me to take the record off. And so, after a month of not doing it, Steve Golly, the lawyer over there, was like, well, we'll just drop Clipse. But that can't work because I'm there solo. But if you let us all go. And for anyone hearing this who might be shocked about this, I mean, this is typical label tactics. They have censored many artists' lyrics in the past. They have stalled albums, stalemated albums because they didn't like certain songs. They didn't want certain features on it. They felt like it wasn't productive to their business. And obviously, Def Jam being linked to UMG, we all know what's happening with the lawsuit between Drake and UMG. And when I've done my many breakdowns on this lawsuit and the repercussions of it, it's funny because there's a chunk of the internet that just really looks at things in black and white, right? And it's just like so extremely one side or the other. It's one way or the other. And there's no nuance to it, right? There's no context to anything. And for me, stepping back and looking at the lawsuit and why I was a huge critic of it, and one of the biggest things was just understanding what the repercussions of this could be for artists in general, for reaction channels, for influencers, right? And I've got another video I'm going to make on copyright strikes and how I'm fighting those and how those have increased on my channel. And I said this would be a result of this because labels will start moving in fear because this sets a dangerous precedent. Well, how else will labels start moving? They'll start moving more to censor their artists because they don't want to face repercussions and backlash of the same ilk and of the same like to Drake's lawsuit with UMG. In this case, the lawsuit's still hanging. UMG doesn't want anything else coming into the lawsuit. In this case, a Kendrick Lamar and Pusha T collaboration and any possible shots at Drake. Let's see what Clipse did here. Sure enough, Def Jam eventually agreed to release Clipse and drop Pusha as a solo artist, freeing the duo up to shop for a new home with a finished Clipse album and plenty more music in their pockets. Ultimately, Pusha says the endeavor was gratifying. It felt good to see how other labels were buying for the project. Now, as they teased last week with a picture in front of the label's plain insignia, they've ended up at Jay-Z's Roc Nation. And I think there's implications to that too, where they feel fully supported and energized. I think that the synergy, just in a rap sense, is going to speak volumes, Pusha says, of the partnership. And I've seen some interesting chatter and comments over the years behind the scenes that, one of Drake's greatest ops in the shadows is actually Jay-Z. And it makes sense if you think about the Super Bowl choice that Jay-Z made and who was selected to perform at the recent Super Bowl and all the controversy that stirred. And now all of a sudden you have Pusha T. You have this collab. You have the knowledge that they walked away from a label deal because of a Kendrick Lamar collab as a statement for censoring artists. And what does Roc Nation do? They welcome them with open arms. And I mean, you want to talk about going 10 toes down and really making a statement for artists, making a statement against censorship. Because it's interesting, yet again, we talk about the nuance of the internet. We talk about how narratives get spun. And one of the narratives that you see with the Drake lawsuit is it's being positioned as Drake versus the industry. And Drake is standing up for the little man. And Drake is standing up for artists everywhere and making an independent stance. Which is ironic because the very nature of the lawsuit calls into question rap lyrics, calls into question UMG not trying to censor Kendrick. So in an interesting way, it's actually pro-censorship, the Drake lawsuit, right? It's not doing anything to really protect artists' freedom of speech, to protect artists' right of expression, respecting just the unwritten rules of engagement when it comes to battle rap. And actions speak louder than words. And for me, if you really want a true example of artists going F you to the labels and making a stand against the industry, it's right here with Clipse. It's right here with what they've done, right? It could have been a simple solve. You take an artist off of it, you ask the artist to change their lyrics, and it does happen. It does happen. It happens in the industry all the time. No, instead, Clipse is like, you know what? This goes against our principles. And I feel like that's one of the things that we continue to see and celebrate recently. Like you see with the Kendrick Lamars, right? You see with the Tyler, the Creators. You see with the celebration of the artists. You see with the Doechis. But you also see this celebration of authenticity. And for me, there's none more authentic in terms of what they stand for than Clipse. I mean, hell, look at No Malice, right? No Malice wasn't really vibing with the industry, wasn't vibing with rap. He walked away from it, and he was fine with that because it didn't sit right with him. And now he's ready to make this return on his terms, on his own grounds. And look at the buzz. How many artists can walk away for a decade plus, 14, 15 years, and come back and have this celebration, have this buzz? But it just shows you the achievements that Clipse has had together. It just shows you how excited people are when you get Malice back, when you get Pusha T back, when you get Pharrell back on production. I mean, I can only imagine fireworks incoming for this album. And speaking of censorship and the lawsuit, there's also an interesting snippet later on in this interview. Earlier, when discussing Def Jam clutching their pearls over a Clipse Kendrick record, Pusha said it all reminded him too much of 2018, weighing in on Drake and Kendrick's ongoing feud, namely Drake's decision on suing UMG over Not Like Us. Pusha elaborates on what he meant. I will say this, Pusha shares, admitting he's no bar-approved counselor with intimate knowledge of the suit. If Drake's adamant to have a lawsuit, it's only because he knows all the things that they did to suppress what was happening around Adidon and the verses and the records and things that were happening back then. He alludes to instances in which he says label machinations muddled, if not outright, nixed the release of verses in which Pusha talked his shit next to people closely affiliated with Drake, as he did on Rick Ross and Lil Wayne's Maybach Music 6 in a posthumously released Pac Smoke song with Young Thug. I mean, that's huge, isn't it? There's Pusha going, hang on, if anyone knows the inside workings of how to censor artists, I was censored back then when I dropped Story of Adidon. And I watched how the industry treated me after that, right? And how they just didn't want to toe that line, how they didn't want to go there if it was anything relating to Drake. And here, years later, you have an example of that now, where you have a label who is moving solely in fear of just repercussions and therefore willing to censor what another artist says, all because of this lawsuit. And as someone who's very adamantly for artistic expression, as someone who's very adamantly for freedom of speech, and for protecting just our right to express ourselves within battles, within hip-hop, I mean, how could you not side with Clipse on this? How could you not celebrate, just the balls that it takes to go, all right, you want to rock with us? You know what? We're gone. That's fine. We will walk. And they actually bought themselves out. Like, they put their money where their mouth is. They didn't just walk away. They had to buy themselves out, put money down, and I'm sure they will receive that back tenfold. Like, they have invested in themselves, invested in their future, and it's so good just to see the authenticity of Clipse back, because these are dudes that really care about the art. These are dudes who take time to make sure that what they put out is the best that it can possibly be. And I'll leave you with this quote from the two brothers because I think it really summarizes Clipse's approach and why people are so excited about them coming back around with a new album so many years later. Locking in with P is good because we revert back to very fanned out times of ourselves, Pusha says. It ain't about like, oh, that song or that beat was knocking, but the feeling. Like, man, we got to make people feel like this. But how do we evoke that feeling? Oh, maybe that beat is evoking a feeling that we ain't felt in a minute, or the rap, or these flows. But it's always about really trying to dial in to the emotion of the song. And I think that's the fun part about it because that's what we really get to feel and find that newness in rapping. And that just speaks to the artistic integrity and someone who just absolutely loves the process of creation and really cares about the craft and what they put out. At the end of the day, he says, the music has to sound as urgent as if we had nothing. It's like records can be good, but that's not it. Yeah, that's hard, but that don't make it. And it's all because we recognize the standard and the standard that I feel like people are holding us to. I can't wait for this new album. But anyways, that's all I got for today. Thank you as always, guys. Thank you for your patience with me, right? I always try to work hard. I try to keep consistent content going out for you. I know these past 2 weeks has been a little crazy because everything that I did, I filmed in advance, so I was a little behind on the news on what's going on. And with a busy summer, with a summer tour coming up, with music videos coming up, with opportunities, collaborations that I have, some interviews I have incoming with other artists, like things are still going to be crazy. Things are going to still be picked up. And, I'm not your typical sort of breakdown channel. I'm not your typical, I guess, content channel in relation to hip hop because I'm not always here 24/7, right? I'm not always here in front of a camera to keep up with everything. I'm a thriving artist myself. I have just a lot going on personally, as you guys know. So, I just try to spin the plates as I continue to, as well as I can. And yeah, sometimes some will fall and some will break, and I'm human at the end of the day, but I'll keep doing the best I can. I love this. I have a passion for it, and I'm I'm very fortunate to share it with you guys. So thank you so much for being here and spending your time with me. Hope y'all have a great summer. All right, catch you soon.
Sit down, sit down. I'm like, wow, how we do it like that? Like, wow, how we do it like that? Like, wow, how we do it like that? Like,